Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, November 28th, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Alex Gleitman. Alex, there was a football game over the weekend, one we'll be talking about for many years. Ohio State 30, Michigan 27, double overtime. Let's talk a lot about this game. Did you think the game maybe wasn't over, but maybe Ohio State had like a 5% chance to win when Michigan took a 17-7 lead? Just what were you thinking when Michigan was up 17-7?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the stadium, and I mean, you know, I think people are always dramatic. I kind of said, you know, this one's over when they scored. And as you said, you know, you always know that there's a chance. I actually said going into the fourth quarter when Ohio State was down 17-7, I said, hey, Penn State was down. I think it was actually 14 points heading into or I don't know, something like that, 10 points at least heading into the fourth quarter against Ohio State, and they found a way to come back and win. So you never know. They just needed a spark, and I was thinking that, you know, Michigan just was outplaying them. They were outplaying them. They were outcoaching them. Ohio State just couldn't get anything rolling on offense. And you kind of have to just tip your cap to Michigan, I think, at that point. They were the better team through at least, you know, 40 to 45 minutes of this game. And I think that's just what I was thinking. I was thinking they're going to lose the game because right now, unless something changes real quick, they're not going to, you know, the way that they're playing, you know, Michigan's just going to grind this one out for a win.
And then things did change big time. Ohio State just completely turned the tables. I wrote after the game, I felt like I needed to write two different columns. One, detailing how Ohio State was outcoached and outplayed for the first 2.5 quarters, and then how they just showed grit and determination. And they then seemed like the team that wanted it more at the end. Well, it looked like Michigan wanted it more early. You know, what do you attribute the turnaround to? Do you think that finally the Buckeyes were getting better play calling? Obviously the defense clamped down too. Just what do you attribute the turnaround to?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, the defense was great all game long. I mean, you gotta. I mean, you know, that touchdown to put Michigan up 17-7. That came after the failed. You know, that came after Ohio State got lucky. Michigan fumbled on the goal line, and they failed the fake punt. So that was a short field. I mean, the defense was outstanding. I give credit to Mickey Marotti. I mean, he had these guys, you know, mentally tougher in the fourth quarter, but also physically tougher. I think you saw Michigan start to get a little bit tired, a little bit gassed in that fourth quarter. And Ohio State's offensive line, while they didn't pass protect well all game long, they started to grind things out. I think Ohio State maybe had, I'm doing the game grades right now, and I was looking at the numbers. They had 96 rushing yards through 3 quarters. So that means, you know, over the last, you know, quarter and 2 overtimes, they ended up with, what was it, like over 200 yards rushing. So I think they had 110 yards rushing in the fourth quarter and 2 overtimes. And they figured it out. I mean, you know, you don't want to see JT Barrett run 30 times in any game, but that was the thing Michigan was giving them. They were letting them run with the quarterback, and JT Barrett and the offensive line made them pay. And they were just punishing them, and they were tougher in the trenches down the stretch, and they gutted it out down the stretch. And I give a lot of credit to Mickey Marotti for that because, as I said, not just physically but mentally, he had those guys, you know, in a war in that fourth quarter and those 2 overtimes, especially when they came back and tied it. They weren't losing the game in overtime. You could just tell the way they were going out there and playing.
Yeah, very well said. I give a lot of credit to Mickey Marotti, too. I mean, it's just, you could see, especially in overtime, that Ohio State was clearly the better conditioned team. It reminded me of the national championship game against Oregon, where you could just definitely tell who was the better conditioned team. And just great to see Ohio State be able to finish the game the way they did. You know, the negative continues to rear its head as far as pass protection. Isaiah Prince specifically, but I tell you what, it wasn't just him. I mean, he was the worst. There's no doubt about that. Taco Charlton ate him up for most of the game, but you know, this would be a big concern of mine if Ohio State is facing, you know, a team like Alabama, who might be even better. Now, no, Michigan's defense is excellent. Let's just be clear about that. But I'm just concerned about the pass protection. That almost cost the Buckeyes a loss, just like it did against the Penn State. I mean, the Penn State game came down to pass protection breakdowns and special teams. Same deal here. Ohio State almost lost because of pass protection breakdowns and special teams. But talk specifically about the pass pro.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I just want to say, I mean, how did the coaches, again, like the Penn State game, not adjust and give Isaiah Prince help on the right side? He was, as I said, he wasn't the only one, but he was clearly the one getting beat all game long. And you know, even when they weren't sacking him, Isaiah Prince's man was beating him every time. I think I saw Taco Charlton on him often, and he was just faster than him, and he was just blowing by him. And I just don't understand how the coaches don't give him any help at all. But I mean, I'm with you, Dave. It's a huge concern. I'm not sure what the issue is. I'm not an O-line expert, maybe like Dwayne is. I would need to break down the film a little bit more to see if it's are people not picking up the right assignments? Are people just getting physically beat? What is going on there? And the good thing is, I mean, you hope Ohio State's in the playoffs and that they now have over a month to prepare for that game, and you can maybe not only help get guys healthy, which should certainly help the situation, but work on fundamentals and mechanics over that next month. I think that's really going to be key for the offensive line, and I have no doubt Ohio State will be ready to go. But from a coaching standpoint, I think you need to give those guys a little bit more help than they've been giving them when you see them struggle that much. But it's really puzzling, and I think it's definitely something to worry about going into the playoffs where you're potentially playing. Alabama. No offense to Michigan, they have a great defensive line, but Alabama is all world. I mean, they have 3 units that deep that are just as good as anyone in the country. And then, Clemson has a pretty decent defensive front as well, and that could very well be Ohio State's opening round matchup. So this is something they're going to have to work on over the next month when they're, potentially playing in the playoffs on December 31st.
Yeah, speaking of the playoffs, the rankings come out tomorrow night, college football playoff. Let's presume that the Buckeyes will stay at number 2. Is there any way that they will drop from 2 to completely out of the playoff, or are they a lock to make the playoff?
I was someone who, a few weeks back when Michigan lost to Iowa, and it was a pretty real possibility that Penn State could win the division, I was one who was more skeptical, I think, than others that, it was win and they're in. I think it's hard, if they put them at 2, how do you drop them to 5 after, they just beat number 3, and the resume they have is so impressive. I mean, I think if Wisconsin wins the Big Ten championship game, there's no doubt that Ohio State should be in the playoff field. They beat Wisconsin in Wisconsin's house, 30-23. It was a close game, obviously, but Ohio State dominated the second half in overtime, outscored them 24-7. I think if Ohio State fans should be rooting for Wisconsin next weekend in Indianapolis. If Penn State wins, the committee maybe has a little bit of a tougher decision because Penn State is playing really good football right now. They look like a playoff team. I think they'd get housed by Alabama, but they look like a playoff team. And, they did beat Ohio State. It's the best win of anyone all year long. And so I think it could be a tougher decision. But again, I go back to if the committee puts Ohio State at 2, I don't see them dropping them anywhere lower than maybe 3 with Clemson jumping them, having an ACC championship, the committee kind of making that a 2 and 3. It really doesn't matter. You're playing each other and it's no home field advantage. So the committee kind of just making it clear that winning the conference championship was a leg up. But, I think Ohio State is in a really good position. If Washington loses the Pac-12 game, I think they're 100% a lock-in. I think if Wisconsin wins the Big Ten championship game, I think it gives them a very, very good chance again. And I think if Penn State wins the Big Ten championship, I still think Ohio State gets in, but I think it's a little bit of a tougher conversation.
I do think Ohio State is a lock, and here's why. I think, in addition to what you said, I can't fathom them moving from 2 to completely out of the playoff after beating the 3rd best team in the nation. Furthermore, I'm going to give a little prediction of how the rankings are going to go tomorrow. I think, obviously, Bama's going to be 1, Ohio State will be number 2, Clemson will move up to number 3, Washington will move up to number 4, and then here's where I think it's going to get interesting. Here's where the committee, I think, will send a message. I think they're just going to drop Michigan to 5th, which that will make Wisconsin and Penn State mad, but too bad. And they're going to leave Wisconsin at 6 and Penn State at 7. That'll send a loud message that winner of the Big Ten championship game is not necessarily in. They need help. They need help from either Clemson losing to Virginia Tech, good luck with all that, or as you mentioned, Washington losing in the Pac-12 championship game to Colorado, good luck with all that. So it's possible, though, but I think 2-loss Big Ten champ gets left out if Washington and Clemson win out. And I think, or just win one more game now, and I think Ohio State is a lock. But we'll see what happens. They keep pulling us in with these college football playoff rankings. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. But that's my little prediction there. And Alex, before I let you go, it was a huge recruiting weekend for Ohio State. Just give a short recap, if that's even possible, about the big recruiting weekend that was for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I mean there were so many 5-star, 4-star visitors this weekend. It's really hard to break it down in just a few sentences, and we have ton of stories we did over the weekend, myself and Bill, and then we have more even coming today and tomorrow. But I would say I think this was a big weekend for 2017. Ohio State still they have so few spots left, but they're in on still at least a handful, if not more, of these elite top 50 type prospects, 5-star guys that really could just make this class from incredible to the best of all time. And I think you have to like where you're standing right now after this weekend with Jeff Okudah. I wouldn't be surprised if he announces any minute now for Ohio State. Baron Browning, the linebacker from Texas, good friends with Okudah, came up on his official visit. He had an outstanding time, and this is going to be Ohio State and Alabama. He's expected to announce his decision tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets pushed back, not only because of the Ohio State visit, but because of Tom Herman being hired down in Texas. My crystal ball is still with Ohio State. I'm going to dig into that one today, but I feel good about the Buckeyes, although Alabama is a very real threat, and I could have that one wrong. I'm just going to try to see how things went from the Ohio State perspective after this weekend. The Buckeyes made a huge move on Marvin Wilson, another 5-star from Texas. I don't think, the front runner, I think he's more likely he stays home, Texas, LSU, Texas A&M maybe, Florida State. But the Buckeyes put themselves in the game when this one. Jay Tufele, a defensive tackle from Utah. Many felt Michigan maybe had the edge coming into this weekend. I'm hearing now more so it's going to be Utah, his home state school, versus Ohio State. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays home with the Utes, but I know he has a great relationship with Larry Johnson, and the Buckeyes did a great job in improving their stock with him this week, and I think they have a really good chance to land Jay Tufele. Cam Akers, a 5-star running back, another one on campus, had an outstanding visit. Many people had the Buckeyes out of this one before the weekend, and now people are starting to think, maybe this is a late steal for Ohio State with Cam Akers. So bottom line this weekend, and that's just a snapshot of some of the 2017 guys that were on campus. There was a ton of 2018 guys. They did a great job, putting themselves in a position to be in the top 2 or 3 as well. It was just an outstanding weekend to be a Buckeye on campus, being able to sell that game, that environment, that result with recruits, and Ohio State's going to have no problem bringing in top prospects year after year as long as Urban Meyer's the head coach.
And they're going to have no problem beating Michigan every year if Urban Meyer's the head coach. Okay, maybe one day Michigan will get over the hump.
Maybe a little bit.
Hopefully, not anytime soon. But great insights as always from Alex Gleitman. Really appreciate it, Alex. And thanks to all the listeners for tuning into the show. I appreciate that as well. Hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag. Best damn band in the land.